welcome back guys. So today in this video of the WCD video series, we are going to be discussing the use of JSP and Servlet account with our web.xml page. So first of all, let's just take a brief description of what basically a web.xml page is. A web.xml page, also known as a deployment descriptor, describes the classes, resources, and configurations of the applications and how the web server uses them to serve web requests. When the web server receives a request for the application, it uses the deployment descriptor to map the URL of the request to the code that ought to handle the request. Java Web Applications uses deployment descriptor file to determine how URLs map to servlets, which URLs require authentication, and other information. This file is named web.xml and resides in the WoW under the web.init directory. Web.xml is part of the servlet standard for web applications. So basically, web.xml defines mappings between URL paths and the servlets that handle requests with those paths. Next, we have to discuss JSPs, which is basically the acronym for Java Server Pages. An app can use Java Server Pages to implement web pages, and they are basically servlets defined using static content such as HTML mixed with Java code. So in a JSP file, we could either use static content such as HTML, CSS, and even JavaScript as well, along with using programming language such as Java. In the app engine supports automatic compilation and URL mappings for JSPs. The JSP file in the application's whose file name ends in .jsp is compiled into a servlet class automatically and mapped to the URL path equivalent to the path to the JSP file from the WoW root. For example, if an app has the JSP file name start.jsp in a subdirectory named register in its WoW, App Engine compiles it and maps it to the URL path /register/start.jsp. If you want more control over how the JSP is mapped to a URL, you can specify the mapping explicitly by declaring it with a servlet element in the deployment descriptor. Instead of a servlet class tag element, you specify a JSP file tag element with the path to the JSP file from the WoW root. The servlet tag element for the JSP can contain initialization parameters. So basically, same as defining and mapping a servlet with a web.xml file, we are able to explicitly map a JSP file along to an XML file. So here is a common example that we have mapped a JSP file with our deployment descriptor. So we basically have two main tags, which are the servlet and the servlet mapping tag, and both of each have two subtags, namely servlet name, which is common to both names. Then they should be similar, and that is how they are going to identify whether it is not another JSP or a servlet. So here is the basic example of how we have mapped a JSP with a servlet. So I haven't yet described how we are going to map a servlet with a XML file. To move on to that, let's head on to our NetBeans IDE and do a simple practical to explain how we are going to do it. So here I have already created a new project, and I have also created a new package, and inside that package I have created a servlet named a.java, which we are going to move on to that a little after. First we are going to create a new servlet, and first we are going to map it to our deployment descriptor. So I'm basically going to first create our servlet, but instead of creating our servlet directly, I'm going to create a Java class. I'm going to name our class B, and I'm going to finish it. So here, now that we have created our Java class, I am going to create a servlet out of this servlet class. Now that I have extended the HTTP servlet class, I have automatically converted this Java class into a servlet. Now, to move any further from here, we need a specific method. Let's just override the doGet method inside the HTTP class and move ahead along with our practical. So here I'm going to override this, which is going to include the request and response, which is going to be a back and forth thing in the container. So to test it out that if the servlet is actually going to work, I'm going to print out a certain output and see if it is going to print. Here I'm going to add an h1 tag. Print hello world inside of it and see if it is going to run. Now we can see that our project has run and the server has been deployed. Now let's call our B class and see if we could get a result. And just like that, we are going to be ending up with a 404 error, which is basically the stating that the web container cannot find such a servlet named B. That is because we haven't defined where and how the web container is going to find the servlet, and because it has no clue, it is not going to be able to find our B class, and it is going to end up printing a 404 error. Because we have not even used any annotations to link it, there is no way of finding it. So because we are going to be talking about the deployment descriptor, let's see how we are going to map it and we're going to solve this problem. So here I'm going to create inside the web.inf folder, I'm going to create a standard deployment descriptor. I'm going to name it web.xml, and here we have created our web.xml page. So when we are going to define our mapping, we have mainly to consider two main tags, which is the servlet tag and the servlet mapping tag. So now that we have created our web.xml file, let's just move on to creating our two main tags, which is going to configure my servlet. And I'm going to first put the main servlet tags, which is basically the servlet tag and the servlet mapping tag. So here we have created our two main tags, and firstly we have two sub tags inside the servlet tag, which is the servlet name. I am going to name it B, and we have the servlet class as the second subtag. Now here we are going to define the class the class name and its directory. So it is inside com.jl web app b. Now we have named its directory. Now under the servlet mapping, we again have the servlet name. The servlet name given under the servlet mapping tag should be identical to the servlet name given in the servlet tag, because that is the only way that it is going to identify when there are one or more servlets inside the web.xml page. So here p, and the last and most important subtag of all, which is the URL pattern. I'm going to give it a pattern such as /b. Now that we have mapped our project, our class with the web.xml page, let's see if it runs. I'm going to give p right here and see, you could get the result hello world, which we have printed out in our b.java servlet. So as I said before, I have created another class a.java where I have defined some code previously on, which is related to this index page right here. So I have created a new JSP named index.jsp, and inside of it I have created a little form with two input tags. Namely, I have given it the name n1 and n2, and I have created a button with the input tag creating its type to submit, and I have given the action of the form as a. Now this is a URL that is, when we are going to click on the submit, it is going to take this data and it is going to take it to the a.java class. But here in a, I have not defined or mapped it to any web.xml pages, or I have also commented our annotations, which is now clearly going to terminate the connection between the index page and our a.java class servlet. So I am going to map this as well and see if the result is going to be any much better. But first of all, I'm going to prove that this class is not linked. As you can see, it is going to offer a 404 error. In the index.jsp page, I'm going to print two numbers, and I'm going to say the query strings have been attached to our URL, and it is going to send it to the A, but the web container is not capable of finding that class, and it is going to print a 404 error. So let's move on to our web.xml page, and we are going to redo what we did with our B class. So I'm going to duplicate this, and instead of B, I'm going to give it a unique name of A. Again, I'm going to set the directory as well to its right full path, and I'm going to give it a URL pattern of A. That is because I have given the URL pattern of A in the action path as here as well. Now I could change this and say I want to set it to ABC, but I need to change it to ABC here in the URL pattern tag as well. Now if we run this, and I'm going to take a request to our index.jsp page, and we are going to land with this GUI right here. So I forgot to mention what this basic uh, two inputs and this button function does. So what basically happens is there are two inputs for taking two integer values, and after we are going to enter two input values as integers, it and clicking on the submit button, it is going to print the addition of it on our main servlet. So let's see if it works or not. I'm going to add 1 and 2, and here I'm going to get the answer 3, and on the top of it you could see query strings that have been attached and sent to our servlet. So what basically happened here is that in our form we have sent our two data taken from our inputs to the a.java servlet, and we have that is possible only because we have mapped it with a URL pattern, namely ABC, and basically it is going to take those two values and going to store them as variables, as integers, and they are going to add it and just printing out as a whole, and finally giving us the result 3 right here. So that is basically how we are going to map a servlet over JSP with a web.xml page. And that is it for today, and let's talk about a new topic in a next video.